Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More, and we're looking at the Lowry apartments, which are being shut down by Aurora tomorrow. Now, this has been a long, crazy story, but something else even crazier I heard about recently from an acquaintance, but you won't hear on the media, are how the crime, which is why this apartment is being shut down because of crime, compares to other properties in the state of Colorado, which are funded by the government and supposedly good properties that are helping people, while this is obviously an evil property because it's owned by evil landlords. And we've got one coming to a city near us in Greeley as well. All right, so these are the Edge at Lowry apartments, which are scheduled to be shut down tomorrow by the city of Aurora PD. So if you don't remember the history of the Aurora complex craziness, it's this one and a few other apartments that were owned by the same company. And basically, we heard last year how an apartment complex in Aurora was being shut down with 6 days notice. 99 units were being kicked out in 6 days. Now, Aurora said it's because of code violations, the landlord being awful, etc. The landlord said it's because the apartments were being taken over by Venezuelan gangs. Now, Aurora said that's not true. The governor of Colorado, Polis, came out and said it's imaginary. There's no gangs in these apartments. The media came out and said there's no gangs. It's all made up. Well, I did a lot of videos on that. We showed a lot of data. We found the letters that were the official documents that started the kick-out process, and they were for crime, not code violations. We found the actual code violations that were posted by CBZ management and the city of Aurora that showed numerous code violations and numerous code violations being fixed and taken care of over the years, which is completely contrary to what Aurora said. So they kind of backtracked after a while, after all this came out, after police reports came out of property managers being assaulted and kidnapped and beaten and threatened. The police backtracked again, saying, well, maybe there were some gangs here. Maybe it wasn't all the property, the landlord's fault. Lots of back and forth on that. Turns out, for more than a year, property managers, housekeepers, cleaners, other residents had been tormented by the Venezuelan gangs. There's police reports, crime reports to back it all up. And basically, Aurora came out and said, well, we're going to kick out everybody here because there's too much crime. And those letters state the landlords did not do a good enough job fighting crime at these apartments, and that's why people are being kicked out. Now, what's really interesting about that is what we'll show you about these other apartments in Boulder and the crime there. But those are funded by the government in feel-good stories, not evil landlords running those. Like I said, there's 40 apartments. I didn't say that. Now I'm saying it. There are 40 apartments here. And let's take a look at those letters because we have them. Specified crime properties determination notice. Here's the legal address. Criminal activity on a property is a public nuisance under the Aurora Municipal Code. Property owners are expected to be vigilant in preventing or deterring crime on or in their property and will be held responsible for the use of their property by tenants, guests, and occupants. APD is aware that there is no property management company present at this property and ownership has no plans to replace on-site property management services. There's an extensive criminal call history for these properties to include aggravated assault, burglary, robbery, and menacing. Those cases are listed below. Now, what they're saying is the landlords did not do a good enough job of fighting crime in these apartments. Why? Why it is the landlord's responsibility to fight crime, I do not know. I'm a landlord. I have properties in Colorado. If my properties were taken over by gangs, I call the police. If there's crime at my properties, I call the police. And unfortunately, there were numerous cases documented through the landlords, through attorneys hired by the landlord's lender, kind of a third party, that showed police calls, crime being committed, and the police not responding or choosing not to do anything about it. In the case of the property manager being beaten, there are pictures of it. They reported the crime in November of 2023. I think charges were filed in July of 2024 or something, 8 months later. Crazy stuff like that happening over and over again. But that's not the point here. My point here is how much crime there is. These are 9 cases right here. And then it goes on to say, that's not all the calls. There were these calls at the apartments as well. So now I counted these for you because I don't want you to spend your time doing that. 51 calls in the last year to these apartments. trespass, weapons, disturbance, fugitive arrest, trespass, and the police in Aurora are saying this proves how negligent the landlords were that they allowed all these police calls and crime to occur at the apartments. Now, I don't know for sure if these are included in those, but just to be on the safe side, we'll say they're not. That's 60 calls. There's 60 apartments here. Did I say 40 before? There's 60 here. There's 40 in the next one. So 1 call per year per unit. Seems kind of high, right? A lot of crime going on at this property. That was enough crime that they said they needed to kick everybody out, remove them, start over on this complex. All right, let's go here to the Bluebird. Hold on. Where's my Bluebird? Sorry. Let's go here to the Bluebird, Boulder's newest attempt to shelter its most vulnerable. On January 29th, Boulder police received their 362nd call in a year to Bluebird, a permanent supportive housing complex. There's rumors of an overdose floating around the building, the caller said. She's being treated with Narcan and she's unconscious. 20 minutes later, a few residents stood outside watching as paramedics lowered their neighbor into an ambulance. There's 40 units here. 40-unit apartment complex in Boulder, built to house its most vulnerable homeless residents. It's its second permanent supportive housing development to provide stability for people with disabilities, mental illness, and substance use orders. Unlike traditional affordable housing, it offers on-site support and treatment referrals based on the idea that stability increases engagement in services. They are not required to be sober, to be drug-free, or to use any of those services, however. So in 2024, they were called 323 times, but as you saw, 362 times in the last year, according to that first sentence. That's almost a call per day in 40 units. That's 8 calls per unit. Actually, more than that. That's 9. But they use this number for their 8. Anyway, 8 calls per unit per year. And they tout this as a fantastic resource and success in helping people get off the streets. My point here is not to judge if a homeless center is good or bad, or if we're helping people is good or bad, but the different criteria used for a private landlord to show how evil and awful they are at preventing crime in their apartments, and why those apartments need shut down, and why the police can't go in there and help and arrest and make it safer. Whereas this property in Boulder had 8 or 9 times the police calls to it. 8 or 9 times the calls. And this is not being shut down. It's not said to be a nuisance. It's a success that is helping our homeless population. I will let you guys figure out what you think of the homeless part of it, but that seems absolutely crazy to me, the different criteria used based on who starts the program, if the government is endorsing it and paying for it with taxpayer money versus private individuals, private landlords, although they may have gotten state money too for helping the illegal immigrants from Venezuela. There were some grants for that as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, there is this caveat to all that. Mike Block, CEO of All Roads, Boulder's largest homeless shelter and Bluebird's administrator, said frequent police calls are expected in the early years of a program like this, as dozens of people exit homelessness at once. He pointed to Lee Hill, Boulder's first permanent supportive housing development, which faced similar struggles when it opened in 2014. A decade later, its call volume is 4 calls per unit per year compared to Bluebird's current 8 parentheses, maybe 9 calls per year. So Bluebird is just starting out. The bar we're trying to set is 4 calls per unit per year, not 8, which is still 4 times as many as the Aurora complex was getting. So we'll see how this plays out, I guess, in Boulder. One thing I wanted to kind of show people as well, I went to Boulder. I went to school at the University of Colorado. That's right here. In fact, I lived right here on that second story of that house. It's very creaky and old and would sway in the wind, but it worked well for a college student. Also lived on Vine Street. Oh no, Marine, not Vine, Marine. Right there, I think that's it. As well as I lived in Sewell Hall too. So anyway, there's University of Colorado. Here is the Bluebird. And you can see it's mostly surrounded by businesses, kind of some industrial properties. There could be some apartments, some housing around here. Not a super residential area, but how does that feel to those businesses and people to have an apartment complex come in where there's a call to the police every single day almost? Not sure I would enjoy that much. Now, bringing that full circle, High Plains Housing Development Corp. aims to help Greeley's chronically homeless with permanent housing. That's where I am. What's crazy about this is I tried to buy this property a few years ago where it's being located. All right, let's read. The project is called Star Rise. It's the first phase of the Northweld Village concept, set to be a 58-unit permanent supportive housing project located at 123 9th Avenue. Dennis Hoshiko donated the 6.5-acre industrial property once occupied by the Northweld Produce Company. Not really true. We'll show you how much he donated. Maybe he's donating more in the future, but I tried to buy this property for like $2.5 million 5 years ago or something. Then he took it off the market. Really cool property. The project aims to provide long-term stable housing along with comprehensive support services to folks experiencing chronic homelessness in Weld County. Mental health services, life skills, crisis, etc. all be offered. And here is the site. Here is the building they're building right here. And I'll show you that. I drove by it today. Here's a really cool old warehouse. Another one here. Then there's some shop space. Also a building right here. And some buildings back here as well. And these are all still operating businesses. This is the only thing being built right here. And we'll kind of show you some of that too. But we want to talk about how this works. Tenants sign a lease and pay 30% of their income, which may come from vouchers from the state. So they're probably getting all their money from the state is how it's most likely done. Who can qualify? Folks must be considered chronically homeless. To meet the definition of chronically homeless, people must have been living outdoors for more than a year or have experienced homelessness 3 times in the last 3 years. They also must have a co-occurring condition such as behavioral health diagnosis, substance abuse disorder, or chronic medical condition. So you kind of see why this might be an issue in some of these areas when and why there might be so much crime kind of coming to these areas. That did not take me to the right spot. Anyway, I know where it is. Over here. Here's that property right here. When you're requiring kind of the most homeless with the most issues to all live together, and there's no requirements for them to be sober or not be on drugs or anything at all, you end up with 1 call per day to the police per unit. Again, no, there's way more than that. Sorry. There's 1 call per day for the whole place. There's only 40 units, so 8 calls per year per unit. So many calls. So anyway, here's where that's being built right here. We'll show you a picture of that soon. These buildings are all still here, all operating businesses. And I was trying to buy the whole thing. But if we actually look at Weld County Assessor's report and zoom in here a little bit, this parcel is all that was kind of given to Star Rise Apartments. So I don't know if they're actually going to do all the rest for sure, or it's a future agreement, but I think Hoshiko still owns all those, and that makes more sense and more of what I was hearing about this. Again, if you own property in this area, how do you feel about that? Houses, multifamily, houses. This is a Rodarte Center, which is like a kids' youth activity with a park. My son's played basketball here before. Houses, health center, all houses over here. So again, some industrial, some commercial, but definitely a very residential area. And you've got an apartments complex moving in with probably what Aurora would consider is 8 times the amount of crime may occur there based on Boulder's building than what happens in the Aurora apartments that they consider too unsafe to stay open. So I'm not sure how we would feel about that. Again, I'm not judging whether homeless should be given housing or all of that, and it's just the situation of housing the most homeless with issues, and house them all together, what problems might arise from that. So I guess we'll see. I'd love to hear what you think. Still boggles my mind that Aurora went through all those somersaults to try and pin everything on the landlords when it was crime, and we look at Boulder and 8 times more crime seems to be just okay there. It's not that big of a deal to them. But in Aurora, it forced them to shut down apartments in one instance in 6 days, with kicking multiple tenants out on the streets. And I should say too, it's not just Aurora versus Boulder. The Colorado Attorney General is investigating opening cases against those landlords for rental practices, and if they didn't screen tenants properly. I mean, how are you going to screen tenants who are coming from Venezuela? I'm not sure. But I wonder if the Attorney General will also go after Boulder and their homeless shelter for all the crime they have there, and if they screen their tenants correctly or not. That would be interesting to know. I think I know the answer to that already, though. I just have a hunch. I know what the answer is to that one. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. We'll have some more updates on this, and as we go, we'll show you what those apartments that are being built look like now. There it is, the apartments being built here in Greeley. And they look really nice. I mean, it's easy to spare no expense when the government is paying for it. And it'll be interesting to see, how it impacts the neighborhood right around here. The property I wanted to buy is right there next to it, and there's another warehouse where this one was. Really cool property, and ironically, the owner said I could put high-end lofts in there when I was looking to buy it. Things changed a little bit.